Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a source text that is going to take us on an absolutely mind-bending journey. We're going to trace a path from a really small, highly localized puzzle on a mountain in China, all the way to a massive, reality-altering cosmic revelation. We'll be digging into centuries-old naval logs, totally bizarre modern experiments, and a theory that literally attempts to rewrite 2 billion years of Earth's history. So grab your notebooks, get comfortable, and let's jump right in. All right, part one, A Tale of Two Mysteries. So before we even touch the ocean, our author actually ran into something totally baffling on a hike up Sierra Mountain in China. They stumbled across 3 small, square caves right on the mountainside. Now, these are small, only about 1 meter square. But what's really fascinating here is their proximity. These 3 caves were sitting side by side, literally less than half a meter apart. Now, you know and I know that in the natural world, environments right next to each other should share the exact same characteristics, right? Well, these caves immediately defied all natural logic. Picture this. In the first cave, there's a freezing cold wind blowing directly outward. Then, in the second cave, right next door, it is completely still. Just drops of water quietly falling into a small pool. But the third cave? That one is the real head-scratcher. No wind, no liquid water. Instead, it was completely packed with solid ice blocks and icicles. And keep in mind, the author explicitly notes this was late spring, early summer. That ice absolutely should have melted a long time ago, yet it just sat there, perfectly preserved. So when the author went down the mountain to ask the locals about this seemingly impossible, physics-defying setup, a local man actually just laughed it off. He explained that these were known as the wind, water, and ice caves, and they'd been exactly like that since his childhood. Then he shared this local legend, saying, if you kowtow in front of the cave, you will have sons. The author points out that this mountain is essentially seen as a place of mysterious blessing, a gospel mountain, if you will. And that sets up a really sharp, deliberate contrast with the much darker, world-famous anomaly that we are about to explore. Let's move on to part 2, defining the death triangle. The source text uses that peaceful mountain anomaly to prove that, hey, weird geographic mysteries really do exist, kind of prepping us for the ultimate mystery. Let's define exactly what we're looking at here. The Bermuda Triangle isn't a legally recognized border, it's a geographical concept. We're talking about a triangular sea area extending from Bermuda in the north, straight down to Puerto Rico and west over to Florida. And unlike the Gulf Mountain, this region has earned some truly terrifying nicknames. The Devil's Triangle, the Ship and Aircraft Graveyard, and my personal favorite, the ominous black hole of the Earth. Which brings us to part 3, Centuries of Vanishing Ships. Let's look at the historical track record laid out in our source text just to prove this is a centuries-old phenomenon. We start way back in the year 1500 with Christopher Columbus. His ship was suddenly hit by sky-high water walls, but what's truly terrifying is that all of his navigation instruments failed simultaneously. Moving forward, we see the French ship Rosalie in 1840, the famous Mary Celeste in 1872, the massive USS Cyclops, which vanished without a single distress signal in 1918, and finally, the infamous disappearance of Flight 19 in 1945. Here is where it gets really weird, though. The crucial point is this unsettling juxtaposition highlighted time and time again in the text. It's not just that ships sink, it's how they are found. The Rosalie was discovered with its sails up and its cargo of fruits and silk perfectly intact. The only living thing aboard? A starving canary. The Mary Celeste was found 11 days after calling for help, but there was zero sign of a storm. The dining table was set with bread and butter, teacups were full, a machine oil bottle sat undisturbed on a sewing machine, and get this, a clock was still ticking on the wall. Every single object was perfectly preserved, yet every single human being had vanished without a trace. And to put the scale of this into perspective, we have to look at the number 15. In December of 1945, Captain Taylor led 14 pilots on a training mission known as Flight 19. Now, despite Taylor's immense experience, we're talking over 2,500 flight hours, he radioed base in a total panic, stating his compass had completely failed and he had no idea where he was. Shortly after that, the radio just went dead. 15 pilots and 5 Avenger bombers completely vanished. The U.S. military launched the largest search in history at the time, 300 aircraft and 21 ships scouring the ocean for 5 days, and they found absolutely nothing. All right, part 4. Compasses, fog, and anomalies. Beyond just vanishings, the source material emphasizes that whatever is happening out there leaves a bizarre physical footprint. In 1951, a Brazilian seaplane spotted a massive, fast-moving black object underwater. Then, in 1977, passengers on a private seaplane found their compasses suddenly off by dozens of degrees, their forks physically bent out of shape, and their tape recorders were suddenly picking up intense, unexplained noise. But arguably the most shocking is a 1943 experiment by a Dr. Josa and the U.S. Navy. They used powerful magnetic generators which resulted in a deadly green smoke engulfing their ship, causing intense neurological stimulation among the entire crew. But hold on, because the most visually striking anomaly from the text actually comes from 1979. According to the source, a joint expedition of U.S. and French scientists discovered a staggering structure on the seabed of the Bermuda Triangle, an enormous underwater pyramid. And we're not just talking about a pile of rocks here. It was reportedly larger than the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and it featured two massive black holes on its body, with seawater rushing through them at incredibly high speeds. And that leads us right into part 5. The cosmic pyramid theory. So we have to ask the ultimate question. How do all these disconnected pieces, ticking clocks, bent forks, and massive underwater pyramids, actually connect? Well, according to our source material, the answer requires us to go back exactly 2 billion years. Yeah, you heard me right, 2 billion. The author claims that the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle doesn't originate with modern aviation at all, but at the very dawn of Earth's biological history. The source text presents this grand, sweeping cosmic conclusion. It states that 2 billion years ago, the greatest creator dispatched angels, who are specifically referred to in the text as super-celestial beings and Buddhas, to Earth. Their mission? To create non-human life forms. And to pull this off, they needed highly advanced laboratories. According to the author, these laboratories are what we now recognize today as pyramids. The text breaks down the exact process these celestial beings supposedly used, almost like a manual. First, they built these pyramid laboratories specifically along the 30-degree north and south latitudes. Second, they operated these labs on dry land for about 500 million years. And finally, they hid their tracks. The author writes that they manipulated the Earth like a child playing with mud, literally sinking the land masses containing the pyramids to the bottom of the ocean and raising the sea level. The anomalies we experience today, the text claims, are simply ancient preventative measures that are still active around these sunken labs. The author concludes by stating that the true mysteries of Bermuda can only be understood from the perspectives of space and time. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought based on our source today. When we look at geographic anomalies, from a tiny ice cave on a Chinese mountain to massive vanishing zones in the Atlantic, are we just looking at weird weather, or are we brushing up against the leftover machinery of ancient cosmic architects? It definitely makes you look at a map in a whole new way, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning what you see.